What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next we are going to be going over the comics that I sold this week. There's some big books, some cool books, over $10,000 in sales. Let's check these out. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So I've been doing these videos the last few weeks. Seems like people have enjoyed them, talking about the comics that have sold, going over pricing. Like I've said in some other videos, if the book sold publicly, like if it was an eBay sale, I will talk about the pricing. If it was a private sale, I won't talk about the pricing for it, just because I don't know if that person wants me to talk about that sale price. So leave it at that. But quite a few books that sold this week. We had 3 raws and 5 slabs, and like I said, over $10,000 in sales, so some cool stuff. One of them was actually a cash trade combination, but we'll call it a sale. Yeah, so it's a cash trade combination because I don't have the book anymore and I got other books in place of it, and so we'll actually talk about those other books as well when we get to that one. But let's start with the raws. We actually had 3 raw books from that Golden Age collection that I picked up along with Big B McFly, the comic guy. They are slowly but surely selling. It's going to be, I feel like it's going to be like 2 years before I break even on that. But, you know, it's all right. They're gradually selling through. But we had 3 books this time. The first one here, and I think I remember the volume and number correct. It's always tough with these. This is Airboy Comics, Volume 9, number 10. And they're all on the interior, and I didn't write it down. I think it's Volume 9, number 10. But Airboy Comics, it has some cool covers. It has a hit and miss. Like, there's some great covers, some not as great. But this one is a pretty cool sci-fi cover. This is a pretty great cover. And I was actually talking about this with some people, that the interior art on these is actually pretty solid. You don't always get that. with the Golden Age, I've talked about that before. Like, sometimes the interior art is pretty either rushed or just not of high quality. But the interior art is pretty solid in this. But this was an eBay sale, and this was $55 plus $6.50 shipping, so effectively $61.50, and there's always plus tax and that kind of stuff in there. But cool sci-fi cover for Airboy, and got a cool little date stamp up there on it too. But yeah, cool book. Great colors on this one too. All right, now the next one here. There were quite a few issues from this run that are part of this collection. I still have to get around to listing all of them. But this is Archie number 35. This is one of the earliest Archies that was in this. I think the earliest was maybe issue 27. This might be the second earliest. Archie number 35. And just always the fun Archie, and this is a Veronica cover. I like the early Archie stuff. I just think they're fun covers. I really do enjoy the Archies. And these ones have this big logo on the top. I like the big logo. Very similar to DC with Detective Comics and Action Comics and all that. I think the big logos are always cool. But this one, Archie 35, sold for $75. You can see, like, colors fantastic on it. I mean, like, that was one of the things, at least, was a pretty big positive with that collection, is a lot of the colors were really nice on the books, even if they were a little bit lower grade books. But yeah, Archie 35, $75. This next one here is one of the bigger books that was in the collection. Not the most expensive one, but definitely one of the bigger ones. This is Action Comics number 68. And this one sold for $650. So pretty big book in that collection. There weren't a lot of books that hit that kind of number in this collection, but this is one of them. Early Action Comics, you can see here, January 1944. Actually has World War II story on the interior, and just kind of like a fun Superman cover. I believe this is Susie on the cover there. Not 100% sure, but I think that's who that character is. But Superman on the cover, you know, helping reel in this whale. But Action Comics number 68, 1944, $650. All right, now moving on to the slabs. The first one here is Amazing Adult Fantasy number 14. If you recognize this book, this is one of the books that I picked up in that trade that I did for the Captain America number 74. So I've been selling through a few of those books so far, but this is a 5.5 one-off, from Amazing Fantasy 15. I talked about that in the other one, just one issue later, and this 5.5 would be like $60,000 or $65,000. But this 5.5 from 1962. I've got Stanley's story, Steve Ditko cover and art. This one was $300, and really, solid presenting copy of this book. 5.5, nice book. All right, now the next one here. This one, I definitely took a bit of a loss on this book. This was one that was on my keeper list for a little while, and so when it's on the keeper list, sometimes I, just to upgrade a copy, because this is one that I upgraded a number of times, I'll be willing to pay a little bit more. And so I had, unfortunately, I then was able to upgrade it again soon after, and so I was letting this one go. This is Archie Comics number 50, and this is, to me, it's, in terms of demand, outside of maybe like Archie Comics 1, but I even think people like this one more than Archie Comics 1, it's got to be the most in-demand Archie comic that's out there. It's this classic Betty cover, and you can see, I talked about that with one that I had seen previously that was an older label, and they didn't say classic Betty cover on the top there, and I was like, they should definitely have classic cover up there, but they do now. This is a newer label. They do have that designation on there. It's a Bob Montana cover. See his little signature block down there. But this is, the seductive Betty cover with, Archie creeping on Betty in the picture, and just a fun, good girl art cover with Betty. And I have a 6.5 now that is on my keeper list. Like I said, this was on my keeper list. This one sold for $2,500. But an expensive book. Like I said, I did take a loss on this one, but hey, sometimes you have to. It's just the way it is. But yeah, Archie number 50 in a 5.5. All right, now before we get to the last book, I had two books that I had to ship out already. The first one, and so I'll throw like a picture up on one of the sides here just as I talk about it. First one was Incredible Hulk Annual number 5 in a 9.6. This book is pretty cool. This is a Claremont signed book. So you can see it's got the yellow label, so it's signed by Chris Claremont. It also is the Winnipeg pedigree. And so that's the interesting thing with that one, is that in theory, you could get the gold pedigree label, but because it is a witness signature, the witness signature yellow label overrides that. I don't know if you'd be able to reach out to CGC and say like, hey, I'd rather have this one, if they would do that or not. I have no idea how that process might work. But this is the second appearance of Groot. He has his first appearance all the way back in the Silver Age. This is in the Bronze Age, way later, and you've got Hulk battling a lot of these monster characters from the Silver Age, and one of them happens to be Groot. I have had a raw copy of that one in the past. I remember reading through it, and I specifically went and read the Groot story just to check that one out. So he's definitely battling Groot in there. He beats him, all that kind of stuff. But cool book, a 9.6, crazy high grade. That one sold for $400 for, that signed by Chris Claremont and Winnipeg pedigree. Now, the other one that I had to ship out before we get to this last book here, and the last one is definitely the biggest one of all of them, was one of the books that I also picked up in that trade for the Captain America 74. This was Air Pirates number 2. And so just like Air Pirates number 1, you've got Mickey. I think it's this cover, it's Mickey and Minnie on the cover though, having their drugs stolen in the desert in this case. There's a reason why these books, they got sued by Disney, and they weren't allowed to publish them anymore. I believe there were only the 2 issues, issue 1 and number 2. This is another very nice grade. This was a 9.4, and this one sold for $230. All right, now the last book here. Now this one I picked up very recently. I was definitely torn on this one. I kept thinking, I'm like, maybe I want to pull it down. I don't want to sell it. And I had a few people reach out about it. I mean, it is not a book you see very often. It's a very nice presenting book. But I ultimately did the deal. It was, like I said, it was a trade and cash deal because it was a private sale. I'm not going to talk about the exact prices, but you'll be able to see the books that I got for it. But this is one that I showed very recently. This is 4-color number 16. And you can see up here, this is the first Mickey Mouse comic book. And it's a 4.0, which is a solid grade for this book. This is a great presenting copy. I even talked about that when I got it, that I felt like it might even have a shot at getting like bumped to like a 4 or 5 if somebody really wanted to take the risk. I mean, they're expensive books. It's always the tough part, like pressing costs a lot, grading costs a lot when you start getting more and more expensive. So you got to decide if you want to take that gamble. And then something can always happen. Anytime you crack a book out, something can happen, detach a staple or whatever. So But this is a super cool book. I've said for Disney collectors, outside of Walt Disney's Comics and Stories #1, this is probably #2. In many cases, this might even be #1. You know, if you're a Mickey fan, this is probably your #1 Disney book. But super cool book. Again, I talked about it when I picked this one up. Not one you see very often. The only time I'd ever seen one in person prior to getting this was a restored copy that was at my local show that the person had a moon price on it. It's been on their wall for like the last, I think, ever since I started going. I don't know, would that be like 2 years ago or something? I think it's been on their wall for 2 years. You know, it's just like, the price is just a crazy town. But really cool book, and, you know, was able to work out a cash trade deal for it. So that was the last book I sold. Now we're going to talk about the books that I picked up for this one. So the first one here, actually, let's see, have I owned any of these? Only one of them. I've only owned one of the 4 that I got in this trade. First one here we've got is 4-color number 678. And so I'll take this one out of the bag so you don't see all that reflection, or less of it maybe. So this is actually Peanuts #1. Now, don't let the gold key one confuse you. I think it's like basically an identical cover, but there's a gold key issue that came out multiple years later that looks exactly the same. That is not Peanuts #1. It's basically like a cover copy. But you see Peanuts #1 up there. 6.0 off-white to white. Pretty nice grade for this book. This book tends to be in much lower grade, so nice grade for this book. It's a solid looking copy. It just, you know, has some spine wear, has this like scrape on the cover. That's not like missing paper. It's like something scraped the ink off a little bit. But I was talking about this one with my wife. My wife was actually like, that is a really cute cover. And I agree. This is a cute cover with Snoopy on the little chair there under Charlie Brown. There's the back cover. And where you got Linus and Lucy. But yeah, great book. One, like I said, I have never owned this one before. So that was the first book that I got in this trade. The second book I got in the trade here, this is probably the most expensive book of the 4. This is Thing #15. And this is the Steve Ditko cover. I am shocked this one doesn't say classic cover. This is probably one of the most in-demand horror, if not the most in-demand. It's close. There's a couple out there, horror covers with Steve Ditko. And and I'll say, like, this was one that, before I had it in hand, and I've had that happen a number of times before, where, like, I'll see a book on the screen, you know, I like books I'd never seen in person. I'd never seen this one in person. I'll see it on the screen, and I'm like, you know, it's okay. And then when I get it in person, it has a lot more impact. I feel like it's a lot cooler book than I originally thought. And that's this book. This book in person, like, I don't know if it's the colors or just the detail in it or what, but it is a really cool book in person. And this is a super nice 6.5. This is an incredible presenting 6.5. Colors are just popping on this copy. You know, great looking copy of this book. Thing #15, and a 6.5 is a high grade for this book. It's from Charlton Comics. These books are pretty tough regardless, but especially in a nice looking copy like this. So cool book, Thing #15 in a 6.5. All right. Now the next one, we've got I'll leave this one in the bag here. We've got a Schomburg World War II cover. It has Hitler on the cover. So it's got a lot of what you're looking for in those World War II books. This is Thrilling Comics #45. I'm surprised they don't say, because they almost always say it's like Hitler cover or whatever. He's in the picture in the back where they're painting over him. But you've got all these Nazi soldiers getting beat up. You've got the swastika on there. Like I said, you got Hitler getting painted over and everything. And again, a nice grade for this book, 5.5, off-white pages. And you can see here it is an Alex Schomburg cover. So yeah, Thrilling Comics #45, World War II cover. Like, solid looking colors, like great presenting copy of this book. All right, now the last one that I picked up as part of that trade, and I don't know, let's take this one out of here. I thought this was kind of fun. So I traded away that 4-color, you know, number 16. I picked up another 4-color number 16. So he had wanted to upgrade his copy of 4-color number 16. And so he had a 1.5, you know, it's got the tape on the spine that's, you know, discolored. And so you can tell it's like really old tape. But overall, a pretty solid looking book. You know, I mean, no big pieces missing out of the front or the back. I mean, so a solid looking copy of this book, 1.5. It says tape on cover and interior cover, which tells me it's probably detached if this this tape wasn't here. And there's, I would guess there's maybe, yeah, I mean, you can see some spine splitting and that kind of thing. I mean, it's why it's a 1.5. I mean, it's one of those books where it's like, unless the spine's completely split, maybe it is. Doesn't really look like it is. I feel like 1.5 is a little aggressive on it. Usually with a 1.5, like kind of like you're gonna have your completely split spine on a book that really is this complete. But it's got creamed off white pages. I mean, solid looking copies. So yeah, actually had 2 of these at the same time. I feel like that's not very common, you know, where you've got 2 copies of 4-color number 16, what is a pretty rare book for Disney books at the same time. But I will be shipping out that 4.0 to him because that was kind of part of the deal. He was going to send me all the books. I'd check them all out first, and then I would send out his. But yeah, worked out the deal. Like I said, it was those 4 books plus some cash as well. So overall, you know, pretty solid week for, you know, for comic sales. Had a mix of raw books and graded books. Like I said, over $10,000 in equivalent sales, however you want to look at it. But hopefully you enjoyed this video, saw some cool stuff. Let me know if you like these, if you like seeing these kind of sales recaps, talking about pricing and that kind of stuff. And I'll keep doing them as long as I've got books that sell, enough books that sell that week to actually, you know, make a video that seems worthwhile. But if you enjoyed this video, if you'd like to see more content like this, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell, all that kind of stuff. I got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos. Subscription button is right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.